All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports Podcast. Well, we have finally reached the end of the marathon, and now we are into the good stuff in the Major League Baseball season. Baseball playoffs are in full swing this week with the wild card series. If you don't know, it's a wild card series. It's going to be best of three. All three games are going to be at the home team site. So you're going to have wild card games in Tampa, Philadelphia, Minnesota, and Milwaukee all throughout Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week. So divisional series will start this weekend. We got the buys in the American League are Baltimore and Houston, and in the National League are Atlanta and LA. So they're going to have a little time off to get their pitching in order and injury situations remedied and all that good stuff. And no better person to talk all things MLB playoffs and guy who's been in the playoffs before. So we're going to talk a little pressure. We're going to talk a little managing teams, players to look at. Chris Perez, our Major League Baseball analyst, former closer with several teams in the major leagues, and our guy here in the Tampa Bay area. So welcome back, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
All good on your end?
Yeah, all good. I'm excited to watch these games start today. Unfortunately, they gave the Rays the worst slots, but
Well,
it is what it is.
nothing unusual there with the TV. But speaking of TV, you got an interesting kind of dynamics this year. You have a lot of big market teams not in the playoffs. Yankees, Boston, Chicago. Obviously the executives at ESPN and Turner and Fox are not probably thrilled about that one bit, huh?
Yeah, not an ideal matchup, but I think they might get, they might get a good one in the finals. But yeah, not the usual powerhouses. But you still have LA, you still have Philly, you got Houston, pretty big markets, but not the Blue Bloods, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right, before we get to the matchups, let's talk about a little bit of heartbreak. I mean, a couple teams that most people thought a month ago were going to make it, the Cubs and the Mariners. Boy, they had swoons in September, man. How devastating is going to be for those two ball clubs. Not that they were locked to make it, but they were just really trending that they were going to make it, and both of them really collapsed in the last month of September.
Yeah, it's unfortunate if you're on that team. Those games all matter. Every game matters, but at the end, when you can see the finish line, and you have, I think the Cubs 6 weeks ago had they were playing good ball. They were second in the wild card, I think, and then they just, like you said, collapsed. It happens. It's unfortunate if you're on the team, but it's all part of the process. The Cubs can use this as experience going into next year. They got a lot of positives. The Mariners, it's a little more disappointing after last year's season making the playoffs, and you would think they would take that next step and be like a AL championship contender. It just didn't happen. Their division ended up being a little more competitive than I think people realized. Texas came on strong there. Once they got their whole team back, Seager missed a little time at the beginning, but then played like an MVP candidate. So back to the drawing board if you're up there. They have a lot of talent up there. It's just they kind of got off to a slow start this year, and it cost them at the end.
And then you saw Team Cincinnati, the young up and coming guys. They don't make a move at the trade deadline. They kind of make the decision we're going to go with the youngsters, and they just run out of pitching. And some of the young guys kind of hit that rookie. I don't know if it's a rookie wall, but just play like young players. Sometimes they had some slumps, and Dela Cruz kind of when it was very up and down the last couple months of the year. Speak on Cincinnati for a minute.
I think the front office took a big picture. Took a step back and looked at the big picture at the All-Star break, and they're building for the future. And why give up some young talent just to get to the playoffs this year? But at the same time, for a fan base that hasn't been in the playoffs in a while, and you got Joey Votto's maybe his last year, it's kind of disappointing they didn't go for it, especially in that division. That division wasn't the strongest.
Right.
But you gotta like what they have coming from. I mean, like you said, all the young players, some of their young pitching did hit a wall, and it's gonna happen. It's just you can't replicate those innings anywhere else, and until you go through it. But they're a young, exciting team. A lot of position players that got their got to play meaningful baseball in September, and that's going to carry forward for them next year. You add a free agent pitcher here, a couple of the young guys take a step up in the rotation, and now they might be one of the favorites for the Central next year.
Talk about a couple, obviously, Black Monday in the baseball world happens this week. Had a couple managers get let go. Phil Nevin in Anaheim, Tito Francona, which is a guy I know you know a little bit, probably going to retire. We don't know the fate yet of Aaron Boone in New York. What just your thoughts on the managerial moves that have been made? Maybe your thought on maybe what happens in New York.
Well, yeah, I think Tito's going to retire and wait his 4 or 5 years and go into the Hall of Fame. One of the modern day best managers. He's been around the game a long time in some big markets and has won. And you don't really hear any bad stories about him. And he's a great guy and a great manager. And I think that Cleveland sent him off right that last game. The Angels situation, I feel like it's basically they want a clear slate to offer Ohtani. Like, hey, we're starting over. I'm sure he'll have a say maybe in who the next manager is. That's something they're going to try to offer him in free agency. And if you look at their organization, I think Phil Nevin's a great baseball guy. I don't think it was his fault that they didn't play better this year. Just the way that team's been run the last 4 or 5 years is. I mean, I think they had like 4 draft picks from last year make it to the majors this year. It was almost like seeing what they had and giving them experience. It's a weird situation over there. New York, I had a discussion yesterday with a buddy of mine. I'm like, who's out there? Like, who are you going to get? Are you going to go, you go get Buck Showalter, who just failed in New York with the Mets? Like, sometimes there is no addition by subtraction. So I think Boone handles the New York media as well as most managers can. As long as him and Cashman are on the same page with acquisitions and they have the same vision going forward, I don't see a reason to not have him back. They still finished over 500 this year. They had a bunch of injuries. I mean, everybody did, but it's sometimes you get caught up in like, oh, we need to change. Like, who are you going to get? Like, who's better in that situation right now at this point? The players like him. Judges come out for him. And that's your most important player is Judge. And I think Garrett Cole doesn't have any problems with him. So, maybe they make a little adjustments here on the staff or I think their analytics division has been getting a lot of, getting run through the mud a little bit this year. And that's a place where I think, you're starting to see teams that have been in the game, the analytics game for 9, 10, 11 years, like the Rays, like the Dodgers, like the Astros. You see them constantly winning. The Yankees have always been competitive since I've been, around. And that's basically when I was a kid, it was because they outpaid everybody. And now it's just to finish over 500 for 20 something years. It's crazy in baseball, especially in that market. So, I think if Judge doesn't get hurt, it's a totally different season. But you can say that for a lot of teams. So I think Boone, when it's all said and done, is the right man for the job. And you circle the wagons next year, and they didn't get anything out of Carlos Rodon this year. He was terrible. Right. Frankie Montas didn't pitch more than an inning or two. So it's not as bad as the Yankee fans are making it out to be.
Going back to Ohtani and the Angels, if the Angels don't sign Ohtani, do you think this is the end of Mike Trout in Anaheim? Do you think they finally maybe make a deal there? And there was some talk that he would be open to a trade potentially and all that stuff if Ohtani doesn't come back. If the Angels wanted, do you think the Angels just completely start over if Ohtani leaves?
I don't think so. I think you have to keep one of those guys. It is still a fan-driven business, and I don't think the Angels, they're not as, diehard and crazy as Philly or New York or Boston, but they still spend their hard-earned money at the stadium, and they don't want you still want to have somebody that's can give you some hope. I know Trout's been dealing with a lot of injuries and stuff the last few years, but he still has a lot of baseball in him. The key is Ohtani, obviously. If part of having to bring Ohtani back is getting rid of Trout, I think they make that deal. But if you lose Ohtani, I don't think they can get rid of Trout too.
Yeah, he's a generational guy still. I know he's been injured a little more regularly the last couple of years, but he's still top 4 or 5 player in all of the sport when he's healthy and right. All right, let's get to the teams that are winning, that are producing in their market. And, we've got some small market team. I mean, who would have thought the Florida Marlins in the playoffs? Who would have thought Arizona makes it in the Diamondbacks? Even Texas. I mean, Texas, I know they had a lot of payroll, but a new team, a new manager, Bochy and all that, and give them credit. So which of the 4 series? You got Tampa, Texas, Miami, Philly, Toronto, Minnesota, Arizona, Milwaukee. Which one going into it kind of gives you the most intrigue?
Um, that's a good question. Tampa, Texas, it's basically offense against pitching. And the age-old adage is, pitching and defense wins championships. The Arizona and Milwaukee, I feel like it's just a weird matchup because we haven't seen it that much.
Right.
I know they're both in the NL, but I mean, the Diamondbacks have a up-and-coming team kind of, and Milwaukee's been pretty competitive the last 4 or 5 years. Some years they haven't, but the news of Woodruff missing the
Right.
series could be a big pendulum swing. Arizona's top 2 pitchers are pretty good. Gallen's an ace.
Yeah.
He's gonna pitch well and keep you in the game. And then
Corbin, who's their second guy?
I think it's Merrill Kelly.
That's right, Kelly. Yeah.
And he's a good pitcher too. A veteran's been around. I know he pitched in the World Baseball Classic and kind of had a rough go of it. I think if you look back, I think everybody that played in the Classic got off to, minus Freddie Freeman, got off to like a bad start this year. So that does affect stuff. So for the most interesting, Toronto, Minnesota. That's
Right.
I think Minnesota's top 5 in pitching. They have some, two, Pablo Lopez is a bona fide ace, and then you have Sonny Gray, who's a veteran that's been pitching well too. And Minnesota had, they have to be so glad that the Yankees aren't in the playoffs. It feels like the Yankees eliminate them every year, every time they make it. So I think they're happy just to be facing somebody different. They have the home field advantage, and this time of year, Minnesota is not a warm place to play.
Right.
It could be rainy and drizzly and cold. I'm going to go with the pitching in both both Texas and Tampa. I think Tampa has the better pitching, and same with Minnesota against the Blue Jays. I think Minnesota has the better pitching. They're going to pull it out.
Let's talk about some playoff pressure. Obviously, a part of the game that's going to be vital is, we know all these teams got pretty decent starters, and some teams have better starters, but you still got to get the last 9 outs of the game. And the bullpens, and especially what you did for a living, closing playoff pressures. Closing a game this week is going to be much different than it was a month ago. The pressure and all the dynamics that go into it. You mentioned the weather. You could have some chilly weather in some different spots. Just talk about just dealing with playoff pressure. I mean, it's a different animal as it is in the regular season. Talk about, is there anything you guys as players can talk about it? Does the manager talk about it, or do you just have to focus a little more? How do you guys handle the difference in playoff pressure?
Yeah, you just got to focus more, like you said. There's really nothing you can change. It's hard to replicate that kind of atmosphere in the regular season or in, obviously in your amateur career. It's just not the same until you go through it, until you perform in it and deal with the adrenaline and all that stuff. It's hard to, all these young guys are getting their first chance. It's kind of like opening day times 3, just all the emotions and at the end of the game, you're going to feel drained just because of the adrenaline spikes, and then, the way baseball is, and it kind of ebbs and flows. So whatever team can kind of, you look at somebody like Randy Arozarena, he just seems to slow down the moments, and whatever, if it's a breathing pattern or just, it's going to be hard without no timeouts.
Right.
The pitch clock will affect.
Right. It's great. That's a great point.
Yeah, especially playoff baseball. There is a time where you need to, collect your thoughts and just reset and take a break and take a deep breath and go back at it. But there's none of that anymore with this clock. So that might actually come into play a little more than the regular season. You might see a couple more violations than you're used to, and because when you're on the mound, you're thinking of bunt defenses now because every run matters, and a walk becomes a rally, and an error can tear apart your inning, and now I have 7 seconds to get back on the mound. So you might see a couple guys just forget about the pitch clock, and boom, there's a violation.
And they might take one on purpose too, just to get their emotions under control.
You might see that too in a big situation. A closer's up 0-2 or something, and yeah, you might see him walk around and just say, whatever.
Take a ball.
Yeah, I think guys have kind of found a little workaround. Like, you can ask for a new ball, and it resets the clock. You might see a lot of that.
Yeah.
Hitters might all of a sudden have stuff in their eye. You'll see them be like, I have something in my eye. I need a couple extra seconds. It's going to be some gamesmanship for sure. Some of the veteran pitchers, I know Scherzer did it early in the year where they kind of quick pitch. They come set and they just quick. You're going to see all kinds of things, I think. It is part of the game now. So, yeah, whatever teams can slow the moment down. Obviously, the guys that have been there, done that, the Astros, they won the championship last year. There's no bigger pressure than the World Series, so this is just a regular wild card series for them. Like they've been there, done that. The Dodgers are the same way, the Braves. But at the same time, every game's different, every situation's different. So the guys that can slow it down and go back, trust their stuff, are the ones that are going to do better.
Who do you think is harder on as far as when the pressure mounts? The mental pressure, is it harder on the pitcher? Is it harder on the hitter?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the matchups. Some guys, especially if it's a home game and the whole, it's a big situation. Like last year, I think back to that home run that Harper hit in the NLCS. A home crowd, everybody on their feet, bases loaded. That's kind of what you either embrace it or you shy away from it. And I think your personality during the course of the season can kind of show guys who's going to embrace that moment or want that moment. That, I said Arozarena earlier, he seems always the World Baseball Classic, the 2020 playoffs. He always seems to shine on a big stage. And if you look throughout history, there's been guys that can do that. Jeter comes to mind in the playoffs. Pitching wise, Madison Bumgarner pretty much put the Giants on his back a couple times. So some guys embrace it, and other guys, kind of just don't want. They don't want it. But it's going to be interesting for sure. That's why we watch.
Yeah, and then guys, the guys that do what you do, close. You guys got. The historically great ones, the Riveras of the world that never crumbled in the playoffs and, just were always so good. And then you've got a guy the interesting guy this year to me is a guy that's had some great moments and he's had some awful moments as the closer, Kimbrel. I mean, a guy like Kimbrel is just so up and down and yo-yo and, he can be devastating, and other days he can't throw a strike and he walks 5 guys. Yeah.
Same with Chapman since he's been with the Rangers. He hasn't been in Kansas City. Last year in New York, he kind of had a bad end of the year. Yeah, it's you never know what's going to happen. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. Kimbrel's been around forever. He's been closing games in playoffs for different teams, and he's been on a lot of good teams. And it's a different animal. These hitters are good too.
Let's talk about playoff managers a little bit. You've got some young guys. You've got the guy Schumacher in Florida is a young, pretty young guy. Obviously, you got the older guy Bochy. You got Cash, who's kind of been around for a while. You've got Minnesota with your guy Rocco Baldelli, who's a former Ray. You got a Council in Milwaukee's a veteran. You got Arizona guys never been there before. Talk about the variety of experience levels in these managers.
Yeah, this is what they make their names on usually. Bochy obviously has the most experience with his 3 championships, and he took the Padres to the World Series too when he was there. Cash, I think he's one of the most I know he's won Manager of the Year 3 times, but the way he gets his team to buy in is you never hear about guys moaning about their playing time or where they hit in the order or when they come into pitch. He runs a really good ship. He's been there, I don't know, 5 or 6 years in a row now. The Rays have been there, but he's going to start feeling that pressure. He needs to, try to bring home a championship. He made that, that controversial decision in 2020 with Blake Snell in the series. So he's kind of got that monkey on his back. If he gets in a similar situation today, or during this run, of course he's going to think about that. And then I'm personally rooting for Miami. Their first base coach was actually a college teammate of mine. He was in my wedding, John Jay.
Nice.
And I played with Skip Schumacher coming up with the Cardinals and a little bit in AAA and a little bit in the big league. So sentimentally, I'm cheering for them. They took a blow too, losing Alcantara. Right. But at this time of year, I mean, everybody's can point to somebody that they've lost, or the Rangers don't have DeGrom, and the Rays don't have McClanahan, and the Dodgers don't have 2 or 3 starters. So at this time of year, everybody's just kind of circling the wagons and going with who they got. So managing wise, I think it's the X's and O's does come into it. Do I bunt here? Do I pinch hit here? Who do I bring out of the bullpen? But I think this time of year, a lot of it is dealing with your team's mentality and trying to, not make it seem like every game is due or, this is the end of our season or until it is, but just try to keep that same, whatever kind of team you had during the season, either it's, a loose and fun loving kind of a team like the Rays usually are, or if it's more of a business, we've been here, done that, kind of like the Dodgers. whatever your team was during the year, you can't change right now just because it's the playoffs. You lose that first game, you can't change because the team picks up on that.
Right.
So it's kind of managing the egos, managing the feelings and the bodies of the players right now.
And with it being 2 out of 3, I mean, it can be over quick. I mean, you one bad inning, 2 straight days, and the season's over, but kind of deal. And these managers and these teams, if you're the manager, obviously the thing we remember about Kevin Cash from the last few years is taking out Snell and all that. The analytics versus what your eyes see in the playoff games. How long do you leave that starter in an extra 10 or 15 pitches to face that extra one more batter? Or do you go analytics says get them out of there after the fifth? How do you think these managers will they just going to continue to do what they do? Or do you think it's going to be more, I'm going to follow my eyes see looking at the game?
I think they're going to do what they do during the season. Honestly, I think the Rays are going to do what they do. If it's the situation and it's the third time through the order and Cash is like, you know what, it's the 6th inning. I have a great bullpen. He's going to do it. I don't think that 2020 it's kind of like when you play blackjack. If you hit on 16 all the time, you can't switch it up.
Right.
So, they've made their bed with the analytics. It's gotten them to this point with the 98 wins this year, 97. They've had a great stretch. Other guys like Baldelli and even Dave Roberts a little bit, they use their guts and they know their team. And, they're going to, same with Dusty Baker in Houston, they're going to, I think those kind of baseball guys, they've seen so many innings. They've seen so many situations. Bruce Bochy, they've been through it all. I think they rely, at the end of the day, they rely on the analytics, yes, but then the gut.
They're going to leave Verlander in to face that extra batter or two, or those kind of guys, the veteran.
I mean, I based on your eyesight, if the guy's stuff isn't the same or he's getting hit around the park, obviously. But yeah, bases loaded, 2 outs, you got your all-star closer or reliever in the bullpen, and you got Verlander on the mound. It's hard to take him off the mound, in that kind of a situation.
All right, a couple more things. We'll have you pick some winners here. Give me a couple. Looking at the offensive side of things, you got some big names. You got Harper in Philadelphia. You got, in Texas, you got Seager and Simeon and those guys. In Milwaukee, you got some more pitching. Toronto's to me, Toronto's kind of a sneaky team. You got a lot of big hitters that maybe didn't have great years, but they've got potential to be great offensively with the Blue Jays. Give me a couple guys that you like that you think can have a big wild card series.
Yeah, well, you look at you said it. I think Seager is one of the best hitters right now going with Texas. But that Rays pitching staff, they're kind of like the Belichick of baseball right now. Like they look at what you do good and they make you do something different. And it takes the pitching. I've seen big hitters come into Tampa and just have terrible series because the pitching staff they have a game plan from Kyle Snyder and they execute it. So he may, that's why I'm picking the Rays over Texas. I just think their pitching is going to be too good. LA, I don't know if it's the weather or they got some kind of weird water over there, but the older guys are mashing. You got Hayward had the biggest OPS of his career, and Freddie Freeman's playing like he's 25, and Mookie Betts is still doing his best, and JD Martinez had a comeback here. I think, between them and the Braves, they got so many options that Max Muncy could get hot for a month and carry a team. I think the Braves and the Dodgers coming into the postseason obviously have one of the strongest offenses. Nobody's really talking about Houston. They won the World Series last year. They had a bunch of injuries this year. They have everybody back now. Alvarez has been back for a while. Altuve's back. Tucker's had a great year. Jose Abreu kind of had an off year, but he's a dangerous hitter in the playoffs. Nobody's really talking about that team. That's the defending champions.
And they had to play for all the marbles the last 3 weeks because they might have 3 days ago they could have been out of the playoffs completely.
And that matters. Those games, those at bats late in September, the Braves had everything locked up 6 weeks ago. I know they've still been playing good ball, but there's nothing like coming to the yard the last series of the year having the win. It's just same thing in the playoffs, right? So the Astros basically same with the Rays and the Orioles, battling it out for the last month for that keeps you sharp. That keeps the rotation. It helps. The Dodgers and the Braves. The Dodgers have a lot of experience of having not to play that hard during September, but and they're a veteran team. The Braves. I don't know how this break's going to go. It does get their pitching in order.
They lost last year with the break. They had the break last year and lost.
It's different. Philly's kind of riding the momentum they had last year, kind of like the same thing. They got some hitters too. That ballpark, Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos,
Right.
Bones. It's gonna be interesting. I actually think they're a good matchup for the Braves if they get there. If they beat the Marlins, which I think they will. I think they're actually a good matchup for the Braves.
All right, so it sounds like you like Tampa in the wild card over Texas. Sounds like you like Philadelphia over Miami. Who do you like? Interesting series, Minnesota, Toronto in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Minnesota. I think playing outside, like I said, the weather. They're what time they play at 4:30. That's not too bad today. But it's different. It's not playing in that dome in Toronto. And they have a great pitching staff, good bullpen. They score runs a lot of different ways, kind of like the Marlins and the Rays can. I know the Rays have a lot of power, but they got speed and they play the small ball. I'm taking Minnesota.
You got Gossman pitching for Toronto. They're a big gun today, so Toronto needs to win this game one, I think, if they have any chance to win the series with Gossman.
I agree. It's you got your big dog on the mound. This is the game you got to win.
And then you got kind of the kind of the off the radar series, Arizona, Milwaukee. You got the pitching in Milwaukee. You got the intrigue of Craig Counsell. Is he gone, going to New York? What's the drama there with the manager? The president's already left Milwaukee to go to the Mets. How do you think that dynamic plays in the clubhouse?
The players. It shouldn't affect the players. They have a job to do. They're on the Milwaukee Brewers. Next year. For Counsell, he's going to try to. He's trying to win the series. Obviously, I actually think Arizona is going to come out though. Milwaukee's, it's going to be indoors. I like Arizona. I like the Snakes. They got some mojo going. I know Milwaukee had to battle a little bit for the Central, but I think the Snakes are gonna take it out. They got some exciting young players. They have, like I said earlier, they have some good top of the end pitching. Bullpen, I don't know really if that's their strong suit. It might be like an 8-7 type of game.
Right.
But I think they have a superstar in Corbin Carroll, and this might be his time to shine, and he may end up being the darling of the playoffs if they can, keep going.
All right, and you like in the division? We probably won't see in the division series. We'll definitely have you back in the NLC, the championship series, previewing those in the World Series. You like Baltimore and Houston to get out of there, or do you think there's an upset team that can beat one of those two in the American League? Can the Rays?
The Rays, Baltimore is going to be a battle. It's going to be I'm pretty sure it's 7 games, right?
I don't know if the division might be best of 5, I think, but I can't remember. But
I think that hurts the Rays. If it's 7, I think the Rays have it because they have a better pitching depth. But it's going to be a battle. I mean, those guys they know each other. They played each other a lot this year with a lot on the line.
Yeah.
The O's got the best of them during the regular season, but this is when it matters. And I think the Rays. I think it's gonna be Rays in Houston, another matchup from past years. And then the NL, the second round would be Atlanta against Philly.
I think that's right. And then LA, Arizona.
So you have 2 divisional matchups there. Again, teams that are familiar with each other, aren't intimidated. I think Philly, especially after last year pulling it out, they got the mojo. They can say, well, we did it last year. And until somebody proves that they don't, they're going to be tough to deal with. Atlanta's been the best team all year. Their offense is amazing, but it's different baseball. They're not going to be hitting 5-6 home runs a game. They're gonna. I think their downfall is going to be their bullpen. Honestly, it's been kind of up and down all year. They had some injuries. Obviously, they have the great position players and offense and a couple good starters. The bullpen's a little short, in my opinion. And I think the Phillies pull it on through. So I think you got Philly and LA and Tampa and Houston.
The other interesting part is will be the impact of the running game, stolen base. We saw what Acuna's done running the bases. So many more stolen bases now this year with the clock situation and the new rules. So which teams can manufacture runs? Can it instead of it being a 1-run inning, can you make it a 3-run inning kind of deal? Things like that with stolen bases and hitting and running and sacrificing and just clutch hitting, not even getting hits, but good outs. Moving guys along on the base paths,
and all that stuff matters. And you look at a team like the Marlins and the Twins; they've been playing like that kind of all year, manufacturing runs. Getting a leadoff double and getting them in. That stuff matters in the playoffs. And it's gonna be a huge part. 2 outs, Acuna gets a walk. before you know it, he's in scoring position, or maybe even third base. So
Right.
wild pitches come into it, and yeah, you can only step off a couple times to try to hold them there. So it's a whole new ball game. It's gonna be exciting. That kind of baseball where every pitch in a close game, that's what you live for. That's why we watch. And the way the rules are now, you're down 1 or 2 runs, every base runner's a rally. So it's gonna be fun to watch. And then teams that have been playing kind of like that all year, I think the Rays can manufacture runs. They have guys up and down their lineup that can steal a bag or go first to third. They're very aggressive on the base pass. It's gonna be fun to watch. I mean, every team has their guy. The Arizona's guy. That's why they're here. They've been the best of the year. I mean, Arizona with Corbin Carroll and LA, Mookie Betts can steal a bag, and there's just so many guys that Houston, Altuve can still steal, Tucker can steal. It's definitely gonna be part of the game.
And remember, fans, no 10th inning rule with a guy on second. We're going to play it out straight up in extra innings. There will be some extra inning games here. The last kind of the sneaky part of the playoffs too, and you hate to bring these guys up, the umpires. The strike, just the strike zone and things like that. And you probably won't. We'll see if Angel Hernandez. Oh my God.
I don't know how he gets playoff games, honestly. Like he's the worst rated umpire with the stats and everything, and he always seems to have a playoff game. I don't understand it.
I mean, just those kind. Just you hate to say it, the check swings and those kind of things, those moments that you never know what could happen in a situation like that, or the strike zone. A guy has a bad night behind the plate, it really affects you pitchers, or to good or bad, that can have an impact in these playoff games.
For sure, you'd hate to see it, but you're probably right. It's going to happen, and we'll see it on the internet and Twitter, and you'll see the
K zone and all that stuff.
The K zone and the pitch way out, and somebody ringing them up. That's part of the game. It's baseball. The call for the robot umpires, and that's fine, but it's not here yet. So we have to go with what we got, and it's going to be part of the game. It always has been. That's the unknown.
How these managers use their challenges too. With the limited challenges, do you wait later in the game, or does that play in the third inning really matter enough in these playoff games that you're going to use your challenge in the third inning?
You never know, right? Obviously you're going to use your discretion, but you only have like 10 seconds. Like,
right?
How fast can your discretion be? Like, if it's early in the inning and it's a call to get somebody on first and second, nobody out, like that could be the game right there. Like you never know, especially with the aces, these first games, you never know.
Right.
One run is all that matters. So it's going to be very interesting. I think baseball should eventually get to where football is, where every play is automatically looked at, and if it needs to be slowed down, you can buzz down the umpires and like, hold on, we're looking at this play.
Right.
I think that's how we get to. But we're not there. Look, just like the automated umpire, we're not there yet. So it is going to be, it's part of the strategy. If it's really, it's part of the strategy. You have to use your gut and obviously rely on your video guys telling you, we should challenge this or not. So, and you only have like 10 seconds now. So it's not like you have, 35, NFL, they can look at the, they look at the replay. They have, 40 seconds until the play clock. So there's no timeouts in baseball. So, yeah.
And the last thing I'll get you out there, talk about the thought process of you as the pitcher knowing every day you're available, as opposed to in the regular season, you might know, hey, today I ain't pitching. I've pitched 2 in a row. I'm not pitching 3. Whereas now, 3-game series, pretty much every guy in the bullpen's available every day.
Yeah, you got to take care of your off the field stuff for sure. You got to do you got to get your rest. You got to do your rehab. You got to save your bullets, as they say. You can't be, throwing extra pitches in the bullpen or, especially this time of year. You've had a long season already, but also the adrenaline kicks in, and you kind of you start warming up with 40,000, 45,000 fans, and you kind of all your hurts kind of go away. So it's more of a mental grind. You have to, you're not that the regular season isn't mentally hard, but it's just you always have another game the next day. So if you mess up today, I can go on a little streak here and have a good month. It doesn't work that way in the playoffs.
Ain't no tomorrow, brother. Sometimes, yeah.
Exactly. So the guys that the guys that can block that out and perform are obviously the ones that do well. There's always those guys that you've never heard of or that just made the team in September or whatever that seem to play a big role, either like pitch 4 innings and extra innings or who knows. But it's always those guys that aren't the guy that seem to step up and have a big role for a team advancing.
Well, you had a hell of a run. Yeah.
I mean, last year Eflin pitched his ass off for the Phillies. And now he's, arguably Tampa's best pitcher going into the playoffs right now. So I don't think anybody was picking him last year to be, such an important piece.
Right.
And there's guys that are going to have that opportunity and they're going to come through, and it's going to be them.
Well, you had a hell of a run yourself, man. It's awesome, awesome analysis, awesome taking the fans behind the scenes a little bit with what you guys go through and all that stuff to get ready for these games and the pressure-packed games that they are. So, Chris Perez, awesome job, man. We'll be in touch as we get closer to the championship series and the World Series, and have a great week watching the games. The Rays will be up first today on Tuesday. Here it's interesting. It's going to be on ABC of all things. It's going to be on network TV too.
I know, it's weird. I'm sure they have the ESPN announcers, but yeah, it's just it's weird seeing baseball on ABC. But it's a weird time for everything. I try to log in to watch NFL, and you have to have 5 different services. So,
all right, bro, we'll be in touch, man. Appreciate the time.
Yep, thanks for having me.
You got it, man. We'll be back on the Powers on Sports podcast in just a minute.